Wigan Athletics 2013 FA Cup final winning 11. Where are they now? In goal was ROBLES. The Spanish goalkeeper followed up his FA Cup winners' medal with the tears of relegation in what was an incredible and emotional few days for the Latics. Following Wigan's relegation, manager Roberto Martinez would head to Everton, bringing a lot of his Wigan players with him, one of which was ROBLES. The goalkeeper has outlasted Martinez at Goodison Park, and despite some real howlers for the Toffees, is still vying for the number 1 spot with Martins to Kellenberg, making 20 league appearances this season. In defence was BOYCE. The man who lifted the FA Cup for Wigan would stay at the club for a couple more seasons, leaving in 2015 as they slipped into League One and joining Blackpool. The Barbados international spent just 1 season with Blackpool before being released. BOYCE recently took part in a Latics Legends match, while spending the rest of his time seemingly tweeting about that FA Cup final. Up next it's Alcaraz. Fairly erratic at the back, Alcaraz's contract expired not long after FA Cup glory and Premier League relegation, and Bobby Martinez couldn't resist the chance to meet up with the Paraguayan again in Merseyside. Alcaraz spent a disappointing 2 seasons at Goodison Park and would then head to Spain, joining Las Palmas for a season before heading back to Paraguay in 2016 to play for Club Libertad, who were currently top of the Paraguayan Primera Division. Also at centre back was Paul SHAUN. Most people would describe SHAUN as a character of the game. Some loved his antics and his versatility, while others just thought he was a cock. Either way, the Austrian is a bit of a Wigan hero, joining in 2005 on a 3.5-year deal. After that contract ended, SHAUN stayed in England with West Brom, where he continued to score important goals whilst donning wacky hairdos. After 2 seasons at the Hawthorns, SHAUN would join Hamburg, but after just 4 appearances, the cult figure was back at Wigan on loan, helping them lift the FA Cup, but failing in their efforts to stay in the top flight. SHAUN would retire in 2013 at the age of 33. Next up it's Roger Espinoza. Arriving from Sporting Kansas City, Espinoza's time away from North America was pretty brief, joining Wigan after the 2012 MLS season ended. The Honduras international stayed at the DW Stadium after relegation, eventually leaving the club in December 2014 to return to the MLS and his former employer Sporting Kansas City, where he's playing alongside English striker Dom Dwyer. In midfield was James McCarthy. Probably the best player in this Wigan side, it was no surprise that the Glasgow-born Republic of Ireland international followed Martinez to Everton for £13 million. The midfielder is still with the Toffees, but has been less of a consistent figure since Ronald Koeman's arrival and has been linked with various moves away from Goodison. Next up it's almost his namesake, James McArthur, who also joined Wigan from Hamilton Accies. MacArthur would stay with Wigan for another year as they dropped into the Championship, but with the prospect of Europa League football. The Scotland international would then move to Crystal Palace for £7 million in 2014, despite interest from Leicester City. So if things had gone differently, MacArthur could be a Premier League winner. Instead, he's just avoided relegation with Crystal Palace. Never mind, Jimmy. Also in midfield was Jordi Gomez. If there's one thing you've got to admire about Jordi Gomez, it's the fact he won't play the game at anyone's pace but his own, albeit often to the detriment of his own team. The Spaniard left Wigan in 2014 on a free to join Sunderland, where he had a pretty uninspiring season and a half before joining Blackburn on loan. Gomez briefly returned to Wigan in the summer of 2016, but was gone by the time the next transfer window came around, heading back to Spain with 2nd Division side Rayo Vallecano. Next we've got Shaun Maloney. After the FA Cup win, Maloney stayed with Wigan in the Championship before disappearing and heading to the MLS with Chicago Fire. 8 months later though, he'd be back in England for a 3rd shot, this time with Hull City, as he helped them achieve promotion back to the Premier League under Steve Bruce. Maloney re-emerged at the end of the Premier League campaign, but couldn't stop the Tigers being relegated again, but has been offered a contract to stay with Hull as they prepare for the Championship. Also out wide was Callum McManaman. The speedster looked like a star in the making when he burst onto the scene with Wigan, breezing past players with ease as if he was a kid playing in a schoolyard, and he did exactly that in the FA Cup final, causing Man City all sorts of problems. But then he also looked like a massive thug when he pretty much assaulted Newcastle's Masio Haidara earlier in the season without punishment. His star is totally faded nowadays, after a forgetful move to West Brom and then moving to Sheffield Wednesday on loan, where he's had zero impact. Up front was Aruna Kone. The Ivory Coast striker was the 4th player in this team who Martinez dragged to Goodison Park with him, because nothing says ambition like signing a bunch of players who've just been relegated. Despite one brilliant season with Wigan, Coney has done nothing at Everton, and it's frightening to know he's actually still there. And finally, we have to mention Wigan's substitute that day, Ben Watson. The ginger-haired midfielder replaced Jordi Gomez with less than 10 minutes to go, and after missing most of the season due to injury, scored the only goal of the game to hand Wigan the FA Cup at Man City's expense. Watson stayed with Wigan until 2015 when he joined Watford, but he has made just 4 appearances this season under Walter Mazzarri. So that's where Wigan's FA Cup winners are now. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.